Good morning, dear friends, or good afternoon, or evening, or whatever, wherever you are. Life is without beginning and without end. You and I consist of trillions of atoms. You consist of trillions of atoms, and I consist of trillions of atoms. And these atoms, some have literally just been ingested as we breathe in, and some have literally just been expelled as we breathe out. There is a commerce of atoms, an infinite commerce of atoms in life in general, and you and I are no exception. We are born with a few trillion atoms as little babies. But if we look at the origin of these atoms, if we look at the origin of the atoms which make up your body and mine right now, your energy field and mine right now, your consciousness and mine right now, if we look at this deeply, we will discover that these atoms pre-existed our lives by, in some cases, billions of years. Some of the atoms in my body and yours right now date back to the Big Bang. And indeed, consistent with the infinicist theory that life is without beginning and without end, the Big Bang was not the beginning of life, but just the birth of a new universe, the universe we inhabit. And this universe, the matter, energy, and consciousness, out of which this universe was created, we say 13.8 billion years ago, but now there are scientists who are saying this universe is at least 27 billion years old because of the age of some of the galaxies which have been detected by our most advanced telescopes, which indicate that the universe couldn't have just started, according to these astrophysicists, 13.8 billion years ago, but one astrophysicist says it must have existed about 27 billion years ago. So anyhow, the birth of this universe in which you and I reside, 13.8 billion years ago or 27 billion years ago, or whatever, did not occur from nothing. It occurred from previous matter, energy, and consciousness. And those poor astrophysicists who say that beyond the 13.8 billion years ago, physical laws didn't exist, are really not thinking through the matter properly. In physics, you don't have an explosion from nothing. You have pre-existing ingredients and the presence of combustible gas, such as oxygen, and friction and so forth. You need pre-existing materials to create an explosion. And so the idea that this universe was born of nothing is really not very mature, and a much more plausible and reasonable view is that life has no beginning and no end, and that this universe is just a new birth, 13.8 billion years old or 27 billion years old or whatever, whichever astrophysical theory you go with, is a new birth which is part of a new birth in an infinite kaleidoscope of transformation of matter, energy, and consciousness. So this comes back to our lives. When my heart stops beating when your heart stops beating for long enough that our bodies are no longer functioning systems. The process of transformation begins. The process of if I get cremated, the atoms which make up my body, my corpse, some go up into the cloud in terms of heat, and some drop to the earth in terms of ashes, or into an urn or whatever in terms of ashes. Now, these ashes have a future, and the heat atoms that go up, the gaseous atoms of heat that go up into the atmosphere during cremation, which are from my body, become part of the matter, energy, and consciousness of an infinite, recirculate into the matter, energy, and consciousness of an infinite number of beings, some at a very low intensity of consciousness, such as bricks and walls, which are actually full of, the walls that surround me are full of atoms whizzing around at great speed. Are full of atoms with electrons whizzing around within these atoms at great speed, but our visual organs are not designed to look at things at microscopic levels, and not designed to see through brick walls and so forth. We don't have that kind of vision. But with instrumentation, the right instrumentation, we can see that, we have theories about the structure of an atom, and we know that every atom has a proton, a nucleus, electrons whizzing around it. So an atom is a dynamic body. Now, the walls don't appear to us to be dynamic bodies, although they're full of trillions of atoms, because we do not see the movement. We do not have that precision of eyesight to see the movement of trillions of atoms, that microscopic precision that would enable us to see the movement of trillions of atoms. So we theorize about the structure of atoms. Anyhow, these atoms that, if I get cremated, for example, or if I get eaten by a shark, my flesh becomes part of that shark, and therefore part of the consciousness, or that part of my flesh that's eaten by the shark. Say I get my hand chopped off by a shark. That hand becomes part of the flesh and ultimately consciousness of that shark. So in a sense, part of me becomes that shark, and so forth ad infinitum. Sometimes we might become part of less vibrant matter, such as a brick wall. But in a sense, a brick wall has consciousness, but of such low intensity that we discount it. In Arthur C. Clarke's book, Childhood's End, he talks about the children begin having sort of special vision and things like that, and they can see beings in faraway planets whose every thought takes about 1,000 years. Actually, we don't need to go far to find these beings. A wall maybe might have a thought every 1,000 years. If you have a cathedral that's 1,000 years old, it might have had, over the process of 1,000 years, one thought. Whereas we have thoughts every minute. We have so many thoughts. Not every 1,000 years, unless we're we've been cremated. But anyhow, so there you are. Life has no beginning and no end. Your birth and mine didn't come from nothing. They came from the atoms in my father's sperm and the atoms in my mother's egg, and these coming together in a new configuration of matter, energy, and consciousness in the womb, which precedes birth, and then we are born, And remember, we lose consciousness for about 8 hours every day on average. So we are not always conscious, for 8 hours every day, except just before we sleep and just before we wake up, when we have what is called rapid eye motion, which is a sort of confused consciousness, which is the consciousness of dreams, a mishmash of consciousness. Apart from these moments of consciousness just before we go to sleep, which becomes so jumbled, and the moments of consciousness just before we wake up, which are sort of dreams, not full consciousness. Dreams are sort of we're not conscious of the environment around us, but we kind of are trying to reboot that consciousness, the mind, reboot the brain into consciousness. And that's how we do it, by sort of dreaming. It's the gray area between so-called full consciousness and so-called unconsciousness. Our unconsciousness, if we have a very deep sleep, I had one such sleep once in which I slept for several hours, and I had closed my eyes, and when I opened my eyes, several hours had passed. The sleep was that deep. It was after a day of intense physical activity where I really did sleep like a log. And when I woke up, it seemed to be just a moment, whereas several hours had passed in my sleep. I just had no memory whatsoever of any dream, of anything. So I just closed my eyes, opened my eyes. But in that space, hours had passed. Everything else that happened, my heartbeat, etc., was in automatic mode. And so I was not aware of that. That night that I slept so deeply, not that I'm aware of it when I dream or just before I go to sleep, when my thoughts become very jumbled, in entering into dream mode before I've dropped off to sleep, or just before I wake up when I sort of dream a bit. If I dream, normally I do, and so forth. So basically, we don't maintain consciousness 100% of the time. We only maintain consciousness on average for 67% of our lives, with 33% of our lives spent asleep. So nothing is conscious all the time. The walls, as I mentioned, might have a thought every 1,000 years. To take from Arthur C. Clarke's idea and transpose it into the actual life of a wall, a cathedral wall, say that's a cathedral that's 1,000 years old, its wall might have just one thought in 1,000 years. Whereas there could very well be super beings to whom we are like as if dead, to whom our level of consciousness is so primitive in comparison to theirs that they consider us, like, as Elon Musk once said in his wiser days, he spoke of the possibility of aliens who might look upon us as cells in a petri dish. That to them, to their level of intelligence, we would appear to be so unintelligent. Anyhow, so you and I, the atoms, the trillions of atoms that make up your body and mine, are part of an infinite continuum that has never, ever had a beginning, and that will never, ever have an end. My future after my cremation, I beg your pardon, my future after my cremation will be a continuation of the matter, energy, and consciousness continuum in an infinity of future forms. You name it: cockroaches, soil, Some we recognize have consciousness, such as cockroaches. They're aware of their environment, and they run away when they sense danger, etc. So they have consciousness of risks in life, of threat of death or whatever, and they run away from that threat of harm, and they run away from that. And so whether our future becomes, we will infinitely recirculate. If we become a cockroach, that cockroach will itself die at one point, and the atoms that make up, if cockroaches eat parts of our flesh or whatever, if a cockroach ingests some of the atoms which went up into the atmosphere, gaseous atoms, during my cremation, then, which were part of my body, then these gaseous atoms will become part of that cockroach, and part of me will have the consciousness of a cockroach. Some people say I already look like I have the consciousness of a cockroach, but that's a very bad joke. And so anyhow, and so we go on infinitely. The cockroach will not live forever, but its atoms will transform into an infinity of future consciousnesses. Some might be parts, some of our atoms might be parts of a superconscious being, not on this planet as far as I know, but there might be, if part of the gaseous atoms that were created in my cremation, which were a part of me, escape the Earth's gravity, escape the Earth's atmosphere, they might travel for billions of years and come to or trillions of years, and come to some distant planet upon which super beings inhabit, and the super being might breathe in that gaseous atom trillions of years from now, and therefore technically part of me will become part of that super being, and so forth. Or my ashes might be turn into cement in a cement mixer. I'm not quite sure how cement is made, but from the earth. So basically, the ashes, if my ashes are cast to the earth, then cement might be made from my ashes, and I might be part of the consciousness of a wall and have a thought in about 1,000 years, and so forth. But the wall doesn't live forever, as it were. This building I inhabit, its walls will become rubble one day, hopefully not too soon, and so basically it will itself transform. The atoms that make up that wall will transform into future consciousnesses, and so forth. So there you are, dear friends. Life has no beginning and no end. Enjoy the rest of your life in this manifestation, in this human manifestation, and I hope you have a very joyful life in your infinity of future manifestations. Thank you.